I hope you get my dry humor in this video, but I also mixed in a number of nuggets of useful information.
Chris Duffin here at Elite Performance Center, and today we're going to talk about how to cheat while squatting. We're also going to talk a little bit of science and Vikings and racism. It all fits together, trust me. So first, how do we cheat? Well, we're transferring power from the bar, so there should be a bar there, but it's not, through the floor. So it starts with shoes. Now, in the past, I've had some custom shoes that I've basically built myself, but now I use these Reebok shoe, and what it allows me to do is I really like a shoe that cups my heel. It's very solid. It's got a nice grip on the floor, allows me to twist that up. What I'm trying to do, and the advantage that I'm gaining here, is I'm able to recruit all the muscle fibers and recruitment patterns that I'm looking for. Gives me an advantage over other people that aren't. So definitely a good way of cheating. Second, we move up. Where do you go from the shoe? Of course, you go to the sock. Now, what's one of the first things that you do every day? You put some socks on. It's all about a state of mind. It doesn't matter what happens the rest of the day. You could have shitty things happen. You could have great things happen. But you got to be remembering what is the day. Today is squat day, and that's all that matters. That's all I'm going to do. So it's very important to start with a good sock. I've got weightlifter socks, shark socks, even polka dot socks are good. But my favorite is the Superman sock. So it's a state of mind, and it's very important. And you're not going to be able to cheat without it. Next, of course, the wraps. I love wraps. You know, I'm a canvas multiply guy is my background. I've been lifting raw the last couple years. Only 2 meets, but anyway, that's my training. I'm not giving up my wraps. So I like to have a good, thick wrap. The more power I can get out of the wrap, the better. And when I put it on, there's a way that I put it on instead of just slapping it on or grabbing somebody at a meet and say, hey, put some tight wraps on me. No, there's a very specific way, and that's why I always put my wraps on myself, because I'm going to get as much as I can out of them. So, first thing, I usually use a wrap roller, and by that I mean a mechanical one or somebody in the gym that I say, roll these wraps for me. Either way, they're the wrap roller. So, sorry, I just got done deadlifting, so I got these socks on. So, as I put this on, big thing to pay attention to is both knees, I go out. I definitely find that if I go in with the wrap, I have more of a tendency to go valgus with the knee while I'm squatting. So try to avoid that. If I'm pulling the knee out, less of a chance. Second, I try to bundle as much material behind the knee as possible. So I'm not really going up and high, this big length, or, you know, I'm trying to get as much material built up back here. It's like in the old school days, you know, the powerlifters, yeah, they only used ace bandages, but, you know, they'd stick tennis balls and shit back there, okay? So I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm cheating. I'm just not using tennis ball. I'm using my wrap. And then I try to wrap, I do a cross at the end, make sure I try to lock that in as best as possible. Now, we're getting closer to the bar, right? So, oh yeah, I use a belt. Watch my breathing videos. I use a belt with a very specific reason, and there's a lot of cues and things I put into it. It's not just putting a belt on. I get a ton out of using the belt. So, between getting that neutral spine, locking in my deep spinal stabilizers, and using that belt effectively, I put 100 pounds on my squat by putting those things into place. That's what took me from a 700-pound squatter to an 800-pound squatter. I didn't get stronger. I tied that stuff together. Got some very informative videos there. Man, that is a good way to cheat. Now, we got the bar. Well, the bar is sitting in one of my favorite devices, the monolift. This definitely allows me to cheat. One, less risk of injury. Got these straps hanging down here. Spotter fails, you know, I don't get, a disabling injury. Second, without having to walk the weight out, particularly if I'm doing chains or bands, I'm saving energy, which allows me on my training to train harder on the part of the movement that matters, squatting up and down. So overall, over a training period, I think I get more out of it because I'm just putting less energy towards stuff that's not effective. Also, my hips kind of shift around a little bit less. I seem to be in a better state and less risk for injury to that. I've had some problems with shifting hips and things like that when I was doing walkout squats in the past. Didn't affect what I squatted because I was still squatting PRs, walking out the same weight as I was going in. I think it was like a year and a half ago last time I did a walkout squat training cycle. I hit an 826 squat during that time frame. And I found that I didn't really lift any more using the monolift. Some people will argue otherwise. But the advantage was focusing on the squat movement, reducing my risk for injury. Now, we're gonna talk about monolifts for a minute, and there's definitely, you know, a crowd of people out there that are very anti-monolift, and I'm cool with that. It's an image, you know, and there's several meat promoters out there, the ones that have kind of driven that image. We want old school powerlifting, man. Old school powerlifting. Do it like they did in the old days. But understand, that's an image that they're selling. If you buy into that image, that's great. But don't tell me that I don't know what I'm doing or I'm not doing it properly if I'm not doing what you're doing. See this shirt here? 1950 clothing company. The image is old school country. I like this image. I don't razz on you and tell you you're crap because you're not wearing the same clothing I am. This is an image. Now my buddy who sells this clothing, he would like me to do that. He'd like me to get that message out to everyone, just like those meat promoters would. But there's a reason they're selling that image. Because there's a lot of other things with old school powerlifting that aren't being done. So they're still using calibrated plates. Well, old school, you didn't know whether you set the record or not until you got to the end and you had to weigh all the plates. You had simple squat stands mounted in concrete tires. Had a lot of risk for injury that the meat promoter would take on if those fell over. Had to staff extra people to hold those in place. All this stuff, you know, it's easier to run a meet now with calibrated plates. You don't have to do all that weighing. You don't have to do all that other stuff. You've got, you know, you're using ER racks that change the height, move in and out. Well, they're all good with that. But the piece that requires extra money and extra setup time and extra transportation, they don't want. So let's make an image. Almost immediately after this last meet, I was told, well, that 860 squat, you know, when people did 860 back in the day with a walkout, they would have been 1,000-pound squats because it wasn't monolifted. And like I said, I've done both. I'm not going to try to please everyone anymore. There was a day I was trying to please everyone, and I thought to myself, well, it is hard to walk out with the wide stance. Walking out with a narrow stance, actually a number of people I know that do that prefer it to using the monolift and find that it's more effective at doing the setup. And I did find that during my experiment with medium narrow stance. The other was going, you know, wide stance squats always look different on film. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the narrow stance squat so I can please everyone again because it looks deeper on film. So I was doing these medium narrow stance squats, and it was not treating my body very well at all. So I went to a trusted advisor of mine in the medical community. He's a doctor, and we did some analysis, and he came back and he said, well, you've got what's called a Scottish hip. I said, what the hell is a Scottish hip? Turns out Scottish hip is a technical term. It actually is. For people typically of Northern European descent. And what it is we've got people that have a deeper hip socket. It's a larger one and it's set deeper in there. And opposed to, I think, Southern and Eastern European that have a smaller socket set more towards the front, allows more flexibility. Now, because that's deeper, it's kind of set out a little bit. And there's some interesting research he pointed me towards, and it was in regards to Olympic lifting. And Olympic lifters, they were finding a higher level of hip and back trauma amongst people of Northern European descent. Now think about an Olympic squat. Usually, well, they don't squat, but you see them squat in training, and they're doing that during their movements. Very deep, usually medium narrow. And again, people with the same hip as myself, that's going to cause problems. And that's what I was seeing. So, you know, that's where monolift comes in useful. For me, I can walk out, but it's harder to set up. And I've been through enough trauma. Anybody that's followed my log, you know, I'm a master of rehabilitation. I've come back from a number of what people would call career-ending, well, as if powerlifting was a career-ending injuries. And I'm just done trying to please everybody. And you can do what you're doing. I'm going to powerlift. And powerlifting is a squat that starts from the squat command that ends with the rack command. And that's what I'm going to do. Now, if you want to buy into this image, I'm all good with that. Like I said, I got my image I like. Now, that image, it's just not something that I'm going to listen to you to tell me I have to do to be legitimate. I follow the rules, and I lift to the rules, and I'm not going to listen to your ideology. Now, why?
What do you call it when you ask that a specific group of people, based on their genetic makeup and race that they have no control over, to be set up for a disadvantage on achieving an award, when the measurement to achieve said reward doesn't have anything to do with the actual performance measured to achieve said reward? For example, squatting between squat command and rack command. Oh yeah, that's called discrimination.
Because you're being racist against me and my Viking brethren, okay? Well, maybe that's a little bit of an overstatement, but it's about as a legitimate a claim as you saying that I have to use a walkout squat to have a legitimate squat. Now
Don't ask me to squat narrow, because it's not going to happen. Now, that does make the walkout harder, but I was told that basically I wouldn't even be able to walk out 860 pounds because it's harder than actually squatting. I thought that was an interesting comment, so I figured, well, what the hell, I did squat 525 by 20 on Thursday and just did a bunch of singles with 705 on deadlift. But let's go ahead and do some walkouts and in this fatigue state, see where the heck we are. Haven't done them for a year and a half, not the most efficient. Look at that hip wobble I'm talking about. But still, you know, I'll stabilize it and get in. And this is it. The name of the game is walk back enough so that you can clear the squat racks while squatting, not a reverse yoke strongman walk. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my website, kabukiwarrior.com.